Welcome to Whispers and Confessions. There might be a twist waiting, so please make sure to watch until the end. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Let's begin right away.
That night, years of suppressed emotions finally broke free. Her touch was tender as she wrapped her arms around my shoulders, and time seemed to stand still as we gazed at each other in the dim light. Like young lovers reunited, we explored each other with a passion that had only grown stronger with time, our embrace igniting years of dormant feelings. My name is Vincent. At 48, I've built what appears to be the perfect life. A stable family with my devoted wife Cynthia and our two children. From the outside looking in, I seem to have it all. But 2 months ago, everything changed during a business trip to my hometown in Ohio. Walking those familiar yet somehow foreign streets, with their old storefronts, nostalgic scents, and flood of memories, I felt an inexplicable tension in the air. As lunch hour rolled around, I was scanning the area for a place to eat when a charming little cafe caught my eye. The Sweet Memories sign had a weathered elegance, and the window display of potted plants bathed in warm light drew me inside. The cafe's cozy atmosphere instantly put me at ease until I saw her. There, behind the counter making coffee, was a figure I'd know anywhere. Before I could process the thought it couldn't be, she turned around with a bright smile for her customers. My heart stopped. It was Fiona, my ex-wife. Vincent, is that really you? Her voice quivered with surprise. I managed an awkward smile and nod. Yes, it's me. Long time no see, Fiona. We stood frozen, words failing us both. I can't believe I'm running into you here, she said softly, setting down my coffee. The feeling was mutual. We'd spent 20 years moving on with our separate lives. Yet here she was, different but somehow still the same warm, sensitive soul I once knew. We talked until closing time that day. She shared how after our divorce, she'd left her life in New York behind to return home and open this small cafe. Though she smiled while telling her story, I could see how tough it had been for her on her own. As I listened, I felt long-buried emotions beginning to stir. I was too young back then, Vincent, she confessed, cradling her coffee cup as her eyes filled with uncertainty. We shouldn't have ended things the way we did. We were too young to truly understand each other, and I was so immature. Her calm words carried deep regret. I shook my head. No, I made plenty of mistakes too. We fought constantly and pushed each other away. But Fiona, I never imagined we'd cross paths again like this. After that day, I found myself returning to her cafe whenever business brought me to town. What began as just stopping by for coffee evolved into long conversations about the past. She still had the power to make me laugh, and our talks transported me back to younger days. When she asked, Vincent, are you happy now? I could only respond with a weak smile. But her question lingered in my thoughts. One evening, she opened up, Vincent, meeting you again feels like destiny. It's as if you've come back into my life to fill a void I didn't know I had. As I nodded in agreement, I felt like we were making up for lost time. That night in my hotel room, I couldn't shake our conversation from my mind. Watching her resilience in facing life's challenges alone stirred something deep within me. I sensed this reunion wasn't simply about revisiting the past, and that feeling was proving more true with each passing day. I began to wonder if meeting Fiona wasn't just chance after all. The time we spent together was making my life feel exciting again, while simultaneously making me question everything I thought I knew about my life. Despite having my current family, a responsibility to my wife Cynthia and our two children that I took seriously, I found myself drawn back to Fiona's cafe time and again. That particular day was no exception. The moment I arrived in my hometown, I headed straight there. When I pushed open the door, she welcomed me with that familiar warm smile of hers. Vincent, I had a feeling you'd stop by today." Her greeting made me smile as I settled into my usual spot. "You know, this cafe has become my go-to place whenever I'm back in town," I admitted with a light chuckle, though we both knew the truth behind those words. While preparing my coffee, she spoke softly, "This place feels less empty when you're around." Her words left me with mixed feelings. We spent the afternoon over coffee, our conversation meandering through various topics. As she shared stories about establishing the cafe and rebuilding her life after our divorce, I began to understand just how resilient she'd been. "Vincent, you seem to have it all figured out," she observed. "Beautiful children, a loving wife. You've built quite a life for yourself." I found myself hesitating at her words, the concept of happiness suddenly feeling more complex than ever. "Sometimes I wonder about that, Fiona. On paper, everything's perfect, the family, the career, but there's this emptiness I can't quite explain." She nodded thoughtfully, setting down her cup. "I know exactly what you mean. Being alone isn't terrible, but there are moments when I long for something more. Lately, having you back in my life has started to fill that void." Her candid admission brought up feelings I wasn't ready to deal with. Though we tried to keep things casual, there was no denying the growing connection between us. A few days later, she invited me to stay after hours. "It's so peaceful when all the customers are gone. Would you mind keeping me company a while longer?" I didn't hesitate to accept. We opened a bottle of wine, and the conversation flowed as naturally as the drink in our glasses. We drifted from cherished memories to current lives until she asked, "Do you ever wonder if meeting again was fate's way of giving us another chance? What might have been different if we'd stayed together?" Her eyes held a vulnerability that made my heart ache. I set down my wine, considering my words carefully. We were different people back then, too young to truly understand each other or what we needed. But now everything feels more complicated, even though seeing you again has brought me so much joy. Fiona's response was gentle as she reached for my hand. "Having you back in my life means everything to me, Vincent, but I don't want this to become a burden for you. Your happiness is what matters most, whatever that might mean." The sincerity in her words couldn't mask the underlying pain. That evening marked a turning point in our relationship. We both knew we'd crossed a line that we couldn't simply step back from. That night, years of suppressed emotions finally broke free. Her touch was tender as she wrapped her arms around my shoulders, and time seemed to stand still as we gazed at each other in the dim light. Like young lovers reunited, we explored each other with a passion that had only grown stronger with time, our embrace igniting years of dormant feelings. In those moments, we were lost in pure, unrestrained love, forgetting everything else, our age, our circumstances, our reality. But when the euphoria faded, it left behind an overwhelming wave of guilt that threatened to drown me. Fiona had become irreplaceable to me, and that terrified me. What had started as an innocent reunion had evolved into something far more significant. Our lives were becoming increasingly intertwined, and our feelings were growing deeper by the day, beyond any control. The weight of our situation wasn't lost on me. I had a family waiting at home, and I was painfully aware of what could happen if our relationship came to light. Still, I found myself at her cafe again that day. The usual bustle was absent, and I found her sitting alone by the window, lost in thought. She greeted me with a weak smile when I walked in. "Vincent, I was hoping you'd come," she said softly. "I'm feeling particularly down today. I'm glad you're here." Her words stirred a mix of emotions: happiness at being needed, guilt at the wrongness of it all. "What's troubling you, Fiona? I've never seen you quite like this before," I asked gently. She took a moment before meeting my concerned gaze. Fiona's voice was barely above a whisper. "These days, I can hardly remember what life was like without you, Vincent. I need you more than I can express. But deep down, I know we're walking a dangerous path. Her words hit me hard. Before I could respond, she gently took my hand and continued, "We both know how risky this is, but Vincent, I can't imagine going back to life without you." In that moment, I knew I had to make a choice. Squeezing her hand, I replied, "Fiona, you mean the world to me. Every moment we share is precious. But this situation, it isn't sustainable. We can't keep sneaking around like this." Her eyes welled up with tears as she struggled to find words. "What options do we have, Vincent? Can we really just walk away from this? I believe fate brought you back into my life for a reason." The thought of being alone again, her voice trailed off. We sat in heavy silence, trying to contain our emotions. But we both knew we'd crossed a line we couldn't simply step back from. A few days later, I found myself back at Sweet Memories. Fiona had invited me to come by after hours. The cafe had a different atmosphere then. Soft music playing in the background, dim lighting creating an intimate ambience. She greeted me with 2 wine glasses at the ready. I thought we deserved some quality time together. We shared wine and conversation, everything flowing naturally as we discussed our past, present, and the complicated emotions between us. Then she asked the question that had been hanging in the air. "Does Cynthia suspect anything, Vincent? About us?" I paused, then shook my head. "No, she thinks all my trips here are strictly business. But I don't know how much longer I can keep up this charade." Fiona set down her glass thoughtfully. "Whatever you decide, I'll understand. But Vincent, you need to be true to yourself first. You need to figure out what you really want." That evening, we finally acknowledged the depth of our feelings for each other. Though we knew it was forbidden territory, we'd never felt more connected. Yet beneath that connection lay a current of fear about the consequences our relationship could bring. As our bond deepened, the weight of reality became increasingly crushing. While moments with Fiona felt like heaven, returning home filled me with overwhelming guilt whenever I faced Cynthia and the kids. One night, Cynthia caught me off guard with a simple question. "Is everything okay? You seem distant lately, like something's troubling you." Her penetrating gaze made my heart race. She knew me too well not to notice the turmoil inside. "Just work stress," I lied, putting on a fake smile, but my shaky voice betrayed me. Cynthia didn't press further, but her silence spoke volumes, making my deception feel even more unbearable. A few days later, Fiona suggested meeting somewhere new. I found her sitting on a bench by a serene lake, her face lighting up as she waved me over. As we walked together, I couldn't hold back anymore. "Fiona, I'm torn apart inside. Being with you brings me such joy, but the guilt is eating me alive." She stopped walking and took my hand in hers. "I know, Vincent. I know this isn't easy for either of us, but I need you in my life. Without you, everything feels empty again." Her confession hit me hard. I could feel how lonely she'd been, how desperately she needed connection. Yet I couldn't shake the image of my family's faces if they ever discovered the truth. "Fiona, my feelings for you are strong enough that I'd consider giving up everything. But I don't know if I have the courage to make that choice." She bowed her head and sighed softly. "Vincent, I'll understand whatever decision you make. But please, let's not lose touch." The thought of going back to that emptiness. Fiona's voice cracked with raw emotion. That night, driving home, I had to pull over to the side of the road. Sitting there with my head in my hands, I felt the full weight of my impossible situation. 2 paths stretched out before me, neither one without its share of heartbreak. Should I stay true to my family and end things with Fiona, or follow my heart and build a new life with her? I spent the next few days completely off the grid, avoiding Fiona's calls and messages. But trying to keep her out of my thoughts was like trying to stop breathing. Impossible. Every memory we'd shared together played on repeat in my mind, becoming more vivid and painful with each passing day. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore and found myself back at Sweet Memories. When I walked in, the look of surprise on Fiona's face spoke volumes. "I honestly thought I'd lost you for good," she whispered, her voice unsteady. "Fiona, I'm so sorry. I needed time to think things through. Being apart only made me realize how much you mean to me." As I spoke these words, she crossed the room and gently took my hand in hers. "I'll wait for you, Vincent. Whatever you decide, I just want you to find happiness," she said, her eyes brimming with genuine love and understanding. Every night, I lie awake wrestling with my thoughts. Memories of life with Cynthia and the kids flood my mind. The trust and love we've built over the years, the precious moments we've shared. I think about those magical early years. Family trips to Disney World, teaching the kids to ride their bikes, their faces lighting up on Christmas morning. I remember the nights we spent taking care of Cynthia when she battled pneumonia, how we've always been each other's rock through thick and thin. Yet I can't ignore what I feel when I'm with Fiona. She awakens something in me that I thought was long gone, that rush of feeling young and alive again. Everything about her captivates me, her infectious laugh, the way she crafts the perfect cup of coffee, the way her face lights up with enthusiasm when she shares her stories. Part of me yearns to start fresh with her, but my family responsibilities weigh heavily on my conscience. If I choose Fiona, what kind of father will I be in my children's eyes? How deeply will they be scarred growing up in a broken home? And Cynthia, the thought of betraying her trust tears me apart inside. But then I wonder, if I walk away from Fiona, won't that regret haunt me forever? Won't I always wonder about the road not taken, the love I let slip through my fingers? Can I really push these feelings aside and go back to my old life as if nothing has changed? I lie awake night after night, staring at the ceiling, searching for answers that seem to slip further away with each passing day. The magnitude of this decision, one that could reshape not just my life but the lives of everyone I love, feels almost paralyzing. I'm tormented by questions of right and wrong, and by the knowledge that no matter what I choose, someone I care about will end up hurt.